In the heart of the mother city, where oceans meet and cultures converge, Cape Town becomes the global stage for women's leadership. From November 5th to 7th, the International Women's Forum brings together 500 visionaries from 30 nations united by one powerful idea: Ubuntu I am because we are. At a time of shifting geopolitics and rapid technological change, the International Women's Forum's Cornerstone Conference explores how connection, creativity, and collective action can shape a more equitable world. Joining us today is a formidable voice for justice and governance, advocate Mojankunyane Gumbi, International Women's Forum member and this year's Susan Hammer Memorial Lecture speaker. Advocate Gumbi, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. The IWF Cornerstone Conference in Cape Town is centered on Ubuntu I am because we are. What does this theme mean to you personally, and why do you think it resonates so strongly in today's world?
Well, it's a theme, thank you for having us. Really, it's a theme that resonates across the world, especially now, because it's a theme that restores our humanity, that tells you that, you cannot do things without the other. And as the world moves towards a very uncertain period, we need that more than anything. And it's important for South Africans to communicate that message because, we come from a very dark past, where we didn't think that we would be where we are. And this is the one country where we faced our enemy across the table and decided that you are because I am, and I am because of you. So, and I think we need a reminder as a nation of that, especially now with the challenges that we're facing. So it's an important theme. We thought about it very carefully, just as a reminder.
Yeah. You'll be delivering the Susan Hammer Memorial Lecture honoring a woman who championed peace and justice. How does that legacy align with your own journey in law, governance, and advocacy?
Well, she was a pathfinder. I wouldn't necessarily call myself that. I came into law at a time when there weren't many women. I think when I went to the Pretoria bar to be an advocate, I was the second African woman to ever go to that bar and the first one to stay. So in many ways, there are some similarities. Susan championed mediation at a time when women were not involved in mediation at all. And she made a career out of it and has introduced an important part. In her area, mediation is very important now in resolving disputes. But more importantly, the issue of peace. We talk about women and peace all the time. There are decisions taken by the African Union, by the United Nations and all of that, but we don't implement them. And I think in the lecture, I will try and focus on the why we are not implementing those decisions that we've taken, both as a continent and globally.
Yeah. Now, the conference gathers nearly 500 women leaders from 30 countries. What impact do you hope these conversations will have on shaping global leadership in the years ahead and, of course, the legacy of the conference going forward?
I think the first thing is that all these women are leaders in their own right. And you don't become a member of the IWF simply because you are doing something or you've got some resources. You become a member because you put something back in your community with youth and everything. For instance, in South Africa, we have trained over 1,000 young women that we've taken across the world, mentoring them and training them. And it's a formal program that we go through. So first of all, you are bringing together women who are community builders already. And we hope that out of this conference, we'll be able to reinforce that sense of responsibility, that it's never only about you. You cannot, from our theme, you cannot succeed as an individual. You have to succeed because others succeed. And so to build on that sense of community and community involvement. And I hope that when they leave, especially with South Africa this year hosting the G20, they will live with a renewed sense of purpose about their responsibility towards the rest of society, not only to themselves. That's what we hope that they would live. We've got for instance, panels that deal with feeding the soul, where we'll have our outstanding leaders such as Womele Tambul, who will be speaking about how at the height of oppression in this country, they found a way to get their souls to be positive, to think about what is possible in South Africa. But at the same time, who really still also reprimand them about the wrongs that are happening in this country when she says not yet Uhuru. So we've got people like that. We've got Thandiso Mazwai. They're not going to sing. They're going to talk about how we lift our souls and what we need for that as a nation.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned there the G20, and of course this conference happens in South Africa in the same year and around the same time the G20 is taking place in South Africa. What does that say about the country's evolving role in shaping the global conversation?
Well, South Africa, I don't know about evolving. South Africa has always occupied a particular place, I think, in global affairs. We go up and down from time to time, but centrally, this country represents what is possible, in terms of humanity, in terms of leadership, in terms of dispute resolution, and all of that. So even with a very difficult G20 because of the geopolitical environment, I hope that we can draw on who we are to inject that sense of solidarity in the world. And whatever the outcome, the G20 is a very limited platform. It's unlike the United Nations where you are all there and you can talk about the broadest issues. The G20 was born out of the economic crisis. So it doesn't have as big a mandate as other fora. But I think even within that limited mandate, this country has got a lot to offer, just in terms of leadership. We really just try to, we need to always try to remember who we are. We were born of great people, and we have done great things as a country. And even in our darkest moment, as I say, we can still show that leadership. So I hope that is what the G20 will get, and not focus on outcome document and all of that, but refocus the world on what is important right now.
Yeah, you speak there of solidarity as one of the themes of the G20 this year, which I think carries a great deal of symbiosis with one of the themes of the IWF conference, which is connection. Solidarity and connection carries a symbiosis in that there is a role of that collaboration plays there, particularly across borders and generations, for advancing women's leadership. Talk to us about how that ties into the conference this year.
Yes, as I said, that the IWF is about lifting others. So if you occupy a particular position as a leader in South Africa, let's say, for example, and you don't bring the next generation on board, we've got programs in our IWF South Africa that have lifted young women. We've got people like the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank, Dr. Mampo, who's gone through the IWF thing, and many others like that. I'm just picking on her now. So that thing of solidarity, you can't move forward alone. You need others in order to move forward. And when we reduce it to its really lowest common factor, we hope that through that we'll be able to make sure that the bigger leaders understand that you honestly cannot, in this global world, which is so interconnected, there is no way that you're going to have one country succeed at the expense of another, because those in that other country will be knocking on your door and flooding your country. So there is no way. We are too connected. We can't unscramble the egg right now. There is no way that one country can really succeed without the other at all.
Yeah. Now, in your own professional journey, you've been deeply involved in governance and democratic reform. What lessons from South Africa's transformation do you think can inspire other nations facing division and inequality across the world today?
I think maybe the first one is just, starting off working under Deputy President, then Mbeki, President Mandela, but then working for a long time with President Mbeki. The one thing that I think I learned and that I can share with people is just discipline. You know, working with President Mbeki, like if you are still working at 3 in the night, but there's a document, another document due at 8 in the morning, and you want to go and rest, he would look at you and say, "What do you mean, Mojanku, you're going to rest? There's a document due at 8. I remember just in the peace environment, working in Lusaka to try and find peace for Congo. So me and Minister Zuma left here thinking we're going to stay for 3 days, and that 3 days turned into 3 weeks. And every time we want to come home, President Mbeki would be like, "Have you attained the mission that you went there for?" And we said, "No, not yet. The agreement is not yet ready." He says, "There's no way you can come back. You know, you went there to get an agreement and help the people of the Congo. You're not coming back just because you've run out of clothes and things like that." It's just a sense of discipline. You know, when there's work to be done, get up and do it. You can't go and say, "I'm going to sleep" or "I'm going to eat" or without finishing the work. So, and just a singular focus on what needs to be done, but also just an analysis of what it is that needs to be done. So I hope these are some of the things that we will share as South Africans to say, you know, we have to do it. We have to do it, yeah.
Yeah, and also the conference highlights the arts, culture, and instruments of identity and healing. As you mentioned earlier, Thandiswa Mazwai will be speaking there, Mamle Tambulu will be speaking there. How do you see the creative sector shaping leadership and social change?
As you know, those are the ones that feed our soul. But you know, the creative sector is so important, and I always watch sometimes in South Africa ministers that don't understand the importance of the arts. Because not only is that a repository of who you are as a nation, but that's where, as I said, you get reprimanded when you do wrong things. You know, with Brahu and everyone, and that's where, when you listen to Brawa Alisa Rote's poetry, that's what tells you when you go wrong. Don Matera, the late Don Matera, you know, reflecting our struggle. This is the repository, as I say, of the soul of the nation. It's the arts. And I think people don't appreciate that enough. And it's time for us to really pay attention to that.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Advocate Mojankunyane Gumbi, really do appreciate you coming in on. All the best.